This is the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 7th chapter, and the Gospel is printed in your Celebrate insert. Jesus set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there, yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syro-Phoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home and found the child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went by Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. They brought to him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him aside in private away from the crowd and put his fingers into his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, "be opened." And immediately his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one. But the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, "He has done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." This is the gospel of the Lord. So I don't know about you, but I'm having a very fun weekend, this Labor Day weekend, and it's great to see all of you here in worship. Just yesterday, my family and I went to see the Rolog event, the Rolog Steam Threshers reunion, and it was so much fun to see the parade through my son's eyes, my 3-year-old's eyes. He just loved all of the tractors. He especially loved the tractors with the tank treads on them. He thinks it's so cool. Now, my son thinks very highly of the Western Minnesota Steam Threshers reunion. We were at a restaurant around Christmas time, this past Christmas, and he had been to Rolog the previous September, and we bought him this flight jacket when we were down in Kennedy Space Center like 5 years ago, before we even knew there was going to be a Paul, because it was like $10. It was super cheap. So he's wearing this flight jacket. It says NASA on it, Apollo 11, and all these different things. And this guy walks up to Paul and says, "Well, little boy, are you going to fly to Mars one day?" And he said, "No, I'm not, but I've been to Rolog." So Rolog and traveling to Mars, it's on the same plane. So I feel like I traveled to Mars yesterday. So we had a lot of fun. So it's a great weekend, and it's a great day to be together in worship. So as many of you know, I used to work as a plumber. I've bored you with a few plumbing tales. When I was in college and then on breaks, I worked for a plumber in Buffalo named Neil, Neil's Plumbing. And actually, Neil was here on my very first day. He showed up and surprised me when I started here at Christ the King, the first Sunday I preached over a year ago now. And most of what we did is we did a lot of service calls, especially sewer cleaning. I got to be really good at running a sewer machine. So if y'all need your sewer cleaned out, give me a call, and I can run right over, clean out the sewer. I'm just kidding. So I got pretty good at that, but every once in a while we would do new construction. And it was towards the end of my illustrious plumbing career, and we were working on this really large home, big, beautiful home. And we had done all of the major work, and we were just finishing up installing the toilets. We called it trimming the bathrooms out, so put in faucets and that sort of thing, put the toilets in, make sure everything's working okay. And there were multiple bathrooms in this big house. And so my boss, Neil, was working in one bathroom, and he sent me to another bathroom just off the kitchen and off the living room. So he also said to me, "Be very careful, because the flooring guys are finishing up surfacing the floor. putting down the varnish on the hardwood floor, which is a very delicate operation. You want to keep dust down as they're finishing those floors. And it was really hard to get into this bathroom because I kind of had to step over a part of the hardwood floor. I could step from the linoleum into the kitchen, kind of over the hardwood floor, and then make my way into the bathroom. And so I did that several times as I was bringing parts in, like the faucet and the toilet and my tools, all that sort of thing. Finally, I get all settled in there, and I kind of looked at the floor and made sure I didn't get any dirt on the floor. I didn't see anything. At least I don't think there was any dirt there. And so then I'm under the sink, and I'm connecting the faucet, and all of a sudden, this flooring guy comes in to the bathroom, and he was not happy. I could hear his breathing above me because I was kind of under the sink. I could hear it through the sink. He was really upset. And then he yelled at me, and he said, "You idiot, are you the plumber that got dirt on my floor?" And I jumped, and I hit my head on the kind of the whole counter area, and I got out of there. And now I've never gone through boot camp, but this guy yelled at me like a drill sergeant. He got 2 inches away from me, and I am not able to repeat a lot of the things that he said to me. He had some very creative language, and he just let me have it. And I didn't have anything creative to say back to him, and I just kind of sat there and took it. And I felt so terrible. I just wanted to cry. And finally he left, and I just felt awful about it. And I went and talked to my boss, Neil, about it, and he said, "Oh, it's okay, they'll figure it out. So I felt terrible about this. And then the next day, he was there again, we'll call him Phil, and went up to apologize to Phil. And then he said to me, "You know what? You don't need to apologize to me. I need to apologize to you. I'm really sorry. I yelled at you like that. I've just been really, really stressed out lately. My business isn't doing that well, and I need every job that I can get, and I'm having trouble at home." And we ended up having this most amazing conversation. And he shared all sorts of different things that was going on in his life. And then after he got done, he said, "Hey, you know what? I bought some Hostess cupcakes for my crew. Can we share a Hostess cupcake? You want a Hostess cupcake?" And I said, "I'd love one." And so we called it the Hostess Cupcake of Peace. So it turns out that Phil was having a very human moment. He was having a very human moment. And I'm willing to bet that all of us have had those human moments when we get angry or upset and we're speaking out of our stress or speaking out of difficult things going on in our life, different battles that we're facing. That can be really hard sometimes. I know there have been countless times in my own life where I've gotten worked up and said something that I didn't want to say. And I think that this is perhaps what is happening in today's gospel. Jesus, you might say, is having a human moment. Jesus was perhaps stressed out about beginning his ministry and working to connect with the people around him. And at this point in the gospel, Jesus has already had many tense run-ins with people, and he was no doubt pretty tired. He was simply looking for some peace and quiet, just wanted to have a quiet meal. And instead of getting the peace and quiet he was looking for, a woman hears that he is a healer, and she comes up to him and throws herself at his feet and begs him to heal her daughter of an unclean spirit. And back then, many things were classified as an unclean spirit or a demon, like mental illness or other physical medical conditions. But clearly, this daughter had something very serious going on. She was in need of healing. And instead of showing her compassion, Jesus blows her off and says, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." And Jesus is kind of saying here, I didn't come to save your kind. I came to save my people. My people, the Jewish people, are considered the children of God. Your people are like dogs. Ouch. Did Jesus really say that? Where is the loving Jesus that we are accustomed to? I think what we are seeing is a very human Jesus. We talk about how Jesus was both God and human all at once. And we may think that the God part would cancel out the human tendencies in him, but that's not the case. Jesus was sinless, to be sure, but not emotionless. Jesus was sinless, but not emotionless. He was probably tired and frustrated by his recent activities, and then he gets ambushed by this woman. His first reaction is to tell her to scram, and he was technically right to dismiss her for two different reasons. The first reason that is in that time and culture, women were not supposed to speak to men, especially not Gentile women and Jewish men. Second, Jesus came to first share his message with the Jewish people, at least initially. That, of course, changes over time. These were the people that God chose to work through the time of the Old Testament. They were blessed by God so that they could be a blessing to all the people of the earth. But Jesus' first words to this woman do not sound at all like a blessing. This woman does not seem to care that she is breaking cultural rules. And she doesn't care that Jesus comes from a different culture. She has a sick child, and she needs some help. When Jesus insults her by inferring that she is a dog, she holds her ground. She says with steely resolve and desperation, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." And she gets his attention. He sees their common humanity, and he has compassion for her after all. He says, "For saying that, for putting me in my place, for breaking all the rules out of love for your daughter, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." I think that Jesus learned something about being human that day. This episode continues with Jesus still traveling in non-Jewish territory when he is approached by a group of people who beg to have their deaf and mute friend healed. This time, when these non-Jewish people break all cultural rules on behalf of their friend, Jesus responds immediately. He takes the man aside. He touches his ears and his tongue. Jesus puts aside all the religious rules and heals this man in a very hands-on way. It is not easy being human. It's really hard sometimes to be human. We get tired. We get frustrated. We get annoyed. We let our tempers flare. We make snap judgments about others. And yet Jesus teaches us, as he himself continues to learn, that the way to be truly human is to stay connected to other humans. We need to be open to one another and be willing to learn from one another. In order to be truly human in the way God intends us to be, we need to love our neighbors as ourselves. And when we stumble, we make amends. We try again, and we learn from those experiences. We are all works in progress. It is important to be reminded that Jesus was both fully human and fully divine. It reminds us what we are doing here in church this morning. We are here to learn who God is, and we are here to learn about how to love and put service into practice. Everything that we do here in church is about teaching and molding us at each age and stage to become the humans that God created us to be. I don't know about you, but I find this text pretty comforting. Hearing about a time when Jesus had a bad day and a short temper is comforting to me as we work to carry out God's mission of telling people about this great Savior, Jesus Christ. I wonder if any of you have had tough days where you find it hard to be compassionate and kind to the people who cross your path. In this story, we see Jesus change course and extend a helping hand to this woman's daughter in the end. Jesus is a model in how to handle ourselves when we mess up, and we mess up from time to time. We are human after all. He makes things right for this woman, and then he takes what he learned from her and applies it in how he handles the next situation where someone comes and asks for help. It is a comforting message because I know that I don't always handle every situation with kindness or compassion, but I sure work hard at it. But I'm human, just like we are all human. So I have a request for you. Whether you are new to this community, a visitor, or a charter member, commit to being an active part of this little slice of God's family. Commit to learning and growing and practicing compassion and forgiveness here on a regular basis. I will go out on a limb once again and say we all mess up in how we practice God's love. Sometimes we don't understand each other. Sometimes we are tired or stressed out, or we are angry because the plumber just trampled dirt on your newly varnished floor. Or perhaps we are distracted, or we just simply brush off a fellow human being. Look to Jesus for how to respond with hospitality and a second chance. Give your neighbor a Hostess cupcake, even. Hostess cupcake of peace. It is not easy being a human, but we don't have to go it alone. In fact, we shouldn't. Being a Christian is not an individual sport. Let's stick together as a team. And I don't know about you, but I'm hungry for some Hostess cupcakes. Amen.